There was a beeping metal sphere that crossed the night sky, and it turned science classes into a national mission. This is Sputnik, and I'm Matt Haswin, and I'm taking you through Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, line by line, lyric by lyric, and here we go to Sputnik. When Billy Joel sings Sputnik, he's pointing to the launch that began the space age, and October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union used an R-7 rocket to place Sputnik 1 into orbit, which was a polished sphere about 58 centimeters wide with 4 antennas that sent simple radio beeps. You could tune in on amateur radio gear, and schools played recordings of it. News anchors called it history you could hear. But the shock wasn't just wonder, it was strategy. If the Soviet Union could put a satellite over your town, it might also be able to send a warhead across oceans. And so the phrase missile gap entered into politics, and the United States realized it was behind in the race that mattered the most: rockets, science, and education. And the Americans' try at first was the first try was the Vanguard TV-3 in December of '57, and it rose a few feet and then it fell in flames on live TV. But the response came quickly. On January 31st of 1958, Explorer 1 reached orbit using a JPL Jupiter C rocket, and it carried an instrument that discovered the Van Allen radiation belts. That same year, Washington created NASA. It launched ARPA, which later became DARPA, and it passed the National Defense Education Act to fund math and science and language programs. Science fairs, stronger curricula, and university labs began expanding, and the Sputnik moment had become national policy. The early months brought more firsts and more debates. Sputnik 2 was November of 1957, and it carried Laika, a stray dog, and it was raising both engineering questions and ethical concerns about life in space. For ordinary people, the most visible Sputnik was often the booster stage that was tracing a bright arc at dusk, while the satellite itself was a smaller, fainter point in the sky. But either way, millions stepped outside to look up together. But what did Sputnik actually do? Well, technically it proved orbital flight, and it validated guidance and staging and telemetry. Symbolically, it told a world that space was not a fairy tale, and satellites could be tools, for weather maps, for global communications, for navigation, and just science. And the Cold War framed it as a contest, but the outcome changed everyday life, from the GPS, timing behind your phone, to the satellites that track storms and fires on the surface. When we tie it back to the song, with one word, Sputnik, Billy Joel captures the sound that reordered priorities in America. A beep that shifted budgets and classrooms and imaginations, everything from ground level up to orbit. And so the reason why it matters is that Sputnik shows how firsts can rewire the future. You have a small sphere that triggered investments in education, research, and technology that still shape the modern world, from rockets to weather data to, maps in your pocket on your phone. If you enjoyed this episode of We Didn't Start the Fire, Sputnik, hey, leave a like, a comment, a share. All those things would be great, and I'd really appreciate it. And I'm just going to keep rolling my way through the song, because right up here after Sputnik, we're going to go to Joe and Lai. So thanks a lot, and appreciate you watching.